Metroid Prime 3 Corruption is the latest title in the franchise, but it's not your average console game. With so much to talk about and so little time to do it, joining me today is Shane Bettenhausen, executive editor of not Games for Windows, Electronic Gaming Monthly. Darren keeps joining me down
you're trying
here.
to put me on a PC game just because this is a shooter or something?
No,
this is a console game.
This is a console game.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about the latest for the Wii. For those of us, which is me, who don't know much about Metroid Prime, give us a quick synopsis of the game.
Right, so Metroid started over 20 years ago as a side-scrolling game for the old Nintendo, 8-bit Nintendo, and then there was another one for Super Nintendo called Super Metroid, and those were like revered 2D classics. But when GameCube came out, they shifted it to a three-dimensional first-person view, which a lot of fans were shocked and amazed, but it actually worked. It still felt like Metroid. It changed the series, it brought in a lot of new fans, and this is the sequel, the first sequel on Wii, and it once again kind of switches things up with a new control scheme, and so far I'm pretty impressed by what I've played.
So is Corruption just a different kind of shooter, and if so, how so?
Well, especially if you come from like a PC background of first-person shooters, this is very different because it isn't really all about combat. It's more about exploration and it's more of an adventure game almost. It's a shooter, but it's also a first-person adventure, almost in like an RPG kind of way.
So is the world pretty open, or are you still stuck to a path?
Well, this one changes it a bit. The previous Metroid Prime games was more open. It was one giant interconnected world that you explored, one planet. And this one, you actually travel to various planets. So because of that, it's a little more directed, a little more linear, but there is still open-ended exploration within those smaller levels.
Now, I think the big question is with the Wiimote and Nunchuck remote system, how does that translate to this type of game? And I mean, this is not your average gamepad.
This is the big change, because in the Metroid Prime 1 and 2, you weren't really aiming so much. It had a lock-on method where you would just press a button and it would lock on enemies, and you'd press a button to shoot and you'd automatically hit them. So it took away a lot of the skill you associate with an FPS. But in this one, they created a new control scheme that uses the Nunchuck and the Wiimote, where you move around with this, but you actually aim by pointing at the screen and pressing the trigger. So you actually have to aim now, which is a whole new change. So it makes it feel like you're really fighting things, it puts you in the combat, and makes the game a lot harder, actually, because you actually have to aim. Yeah.
Now, let's move on to the graphics. You don't expect much from the Wii. However, the game looks really good. Is it something that shocked you a little bit, or?
Well, I was shocked in two ways. A, Wii games in general don't look very good, especially compared to what we're seeing on PC, 360, or PS3. So you come in expecting, not so much. And with those expectations, you'll be impressed, because the game is aesthetically beautiful. Like, it looks really good. It runs at a really great frame rate. Everything looks very crisp. But at the same time, it still looks kind of like a GameCube game, but a really good GameCube game. So you're kind of two minds. It looks beautiful, but it's definitely a few steps below what's going on competing consoles.
What else impressed you with this game?
Just the new way it's presented, because in the previous games there really weren't many cutscenes or no voices. Now it's almost like a Half-Life style presentation where scripted events will happen. Like when the game begins, you're on the space station and it gets attacked, and you're all seeing it happen while you're running around. That's completely new from Metroid Prime. So it's definitely a more sophisticated presentation.
And is Samus still kicking some serious butt? And should people buy this game?
I think definitely. It's probably not quite as good as Zelda in terms of like the best Wii game out there, but it's very solid. It's a long quest. The boss battles are exciting. Good graphics. Yeah, it's definitely recommendable. It's just don't expect something on par with like Crysis or Halo 3. Like keep your expectations dialed down for an FPS. But in terms of something that combines adventure, shooting, yeah, it's a really solid game. Definitely.
Outstanding. Thanks, Shane. Appreciate it. Metroid Prime 3 Corruption is only for the Wii, and it's going to cost you $50. It's published by Nintendo of America. It's out in stores now. Enjoy it. Back to you guys.